Have you ever found yourself sitting in one of those incredibly long, highly technical meetings, and someone is explaining a complex new process, and you just keep nodding your head?
Oh, yeah, like a bobblehead.
Right. You're sitting there repeating, I understand. Yes, I understand, until you suddenly realize you sound exactly like a robot whose programming is glitching.
Yep, it's the worst.
Your eyes are glazing over, the words are losing all meaning, and you're just trapped in this infinite loop of the same phrase. Or, I mean, even worse, have you ever been in a high-stakes discussion with a colleague from another country and you tried to politely say, I disagree, but based on the sheer horror on their face, you might as well have just insulted their entire family lineage?
It is a profoundly universal experience, and honestly, one that is rarely talked about with the nuance it really deserves.
No, it isn't.
Like, we spend so much time in our professional lives focusing on learning the hard skills, the vocabulary, the grammar, the technical jargon of our specific industries.
The stuff on the resume.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we often completely forget that the actual mechanics of human connection, well, they rely on a very delicate, highly sophisticated balance of phrasing and tone.
Yeah, totally.
When you only have one tool in your conversational toolbox, like the phrase, I understand, you're severely limiting your ability to connect, to empathize, and to negotiate. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece using only the color beige.
Which is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are going to completely master the art of showing comprehension, politely navigating disagreements, and sending the absolute perfect professional email acknowledgments in English.
Yes, we are.
Because it's not just about what you say, right? It's about how it lands. And before we get into it, I want to give a warm welcome to you, our listener, and mention that this deep dive is brought to you in partnership with lingoleap, the community home for English learners looking to build their speaking confidence.
A fantastic community, by the way.
It really is, and I am so ready for this because I desperately need to upgrade my daily vocabulary. I feel like I've been stuck in that exact robot loop at work lately, and it's just exhausting.
Well, that is exactly why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is that choosing the right words isn't actually just about having a bigger vocabulary.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a walking thesaurus.
Thank goodness.
Right. It is really about cultural intelligence. It's about understanding the sociological weight behind the phrases we use.
The sociological weight, that sounds heavy.
It is. The words we choose to show that we comprehend something, or the way we push back on a flawed idea, they signal our fundamental respect for the other person's intellect and their time. Basically, language is the architecture of our relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even get to the juicy stuff like agreeing or disagreeing with someone or managing a heated conflict, we first have to actually let them know we comprehend the baseline of what they are saying.
Yes, step one.
We need to upgrade that classic robotic, I understand. So let's start with the casual, informal alternatives. The phrases you use with your friends, your family, or those coworkers you know really well, where a formal, I comprehend your statement would just sound completely bizarre.
Exactly. Context is everything here. In an informal work culture, or just chatting over coffee in the break room, I understand, can actually sound a bit too stiff, like almost alienating.
Yeah, it creates distance.
It really does. So we rely on shorter, punchier alternatives that prioritize efficiency over formality. And the most common one is simply, got it.
Got it.
Yep. It's fast, it is incredibly efficient, and it keeps the momentum of the conversation moving. Like, I need you to send that report by 5. Got it.
You aren't lingering on the acknowledgement. You're just confirming receipt and moving immediately to action.
Precisely.
Right. Got it is basically the workhorse of the modern office. And then there's the even more relaxed cousin of got it, which is gotcha.
Ah, yes. Gotcha.
Which is really just a blended, slightly lazy form of that I've got you, isn't it? But why do we compress it like that?
Well, it's a great question, and it actually comes down to the mechanics of spoken English.
Yeah.
In phonetics, there's this phenomenon called assimilation.
Assimilation, okay.
Yeah, so when a word ending in a sharp P sound meets a word starting with a soft Y sound, our mouths naturally want to take the path of least resistance.
So it just mushes together.
Exactly. Those two sounds blend into a CH sound. Gotcha becomes gotcha. It's incredibly common, and it's not just laziness. I mean, it's linguistic economy.
Linguistic economy, I like that excuse.
Right, but beyond the phonetics, The social function of gotcha is fascinating. You're telling the other person not only that you understand the information, but that you have the situation covered.
Oh, like a team effort.
Yep. It implies a sense of camaraderie. It says, I understand, and I am taking ownership of this alongside you.
That makes total sense. It's like a micro commitment wrapped in a casual phrase. Now, here is another one I hear a lot, especially when someone is trying to explain something really complicated. Clear as
Oh,
day.
that's a good one.
Like, your explanation was clear as day. I've always liked the visual of this one.
It is a fantastic idiom,
Oof.
primarily because it relies on such a universal human experience. I mean, think about it. Before artificial light, the difference between the clarity of high noon and the ambiguity of twilight was massive.
Right, literally night and day.
Exactly. If something is clear as day, it is fully illuminated. It leaves absolutely no shadows, no room for confusion or misinterpretation.
That's very poetic for an office meeting.
It is. And when you use this phrase, you're giving a massive compliment to the speaker. You're telling them that their ability to explain a complex topic was so effective that it removed all darkness from the subject.
I really want to ask about another one that feels very specific, though. What about Roger that?
Ah, roger that.
Yeah. I hear this one in movies all the time, usually when someone is flying a fighter jet or police officers are talking on a walkie-talkie. Is Roger that too military to use at work?
I hear that concern a lot.
I always worry that if I use it, I'm going to sound like I'm reporting for active duty when my boss just asked me to restock the coffee pots.
Well, it's a highly perceptive concern, and you're entirely right about its origins. It originated in the military, specifically during the early days of two-way radio communication.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The letter R was used to stand for received, meaning a message had been successfully transmitted. But over a crackly radio, single letters are easily lost or confused.
Because it just sounds like static.
Exactly. So they used the phonetic alphabet of the time, where R was represented by the word Roger. Thus, Roger that literally just means receive that.
Okay, but to my question about using it at work, is it too much?
It has thoroughly crossed over into civilian life, particularly in North America. So no, it isn't too intense for an office environment. Not at all, provided the context is right.
So it's okay for friendly chats.
Totally. Today, it's perfectly acceptable in informal, friendly workplace chats, and it's often used to inject a tiny bit of playfulness into mundane tasks.
Oh, I see.
Let's say a close coworker messages you on Slack and says, hey, can you grab some printer paper on your way back from lunch? A quick roger that is a slightly playful, highly efficient way to say, message received and understood, I am on the mission.
That's funny. It actually lowers the stakes of the interaction by treating a boring task with mock seriousness.
Oh, exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What if you don't actually understand every single tiny detail, but you get the general overarching idea?
The gray area.
Yes. You definitely don't want to say, got it, or roger that, because those imply total, unequivocal mastery of the information. But you also don't want to derail the entire meeting to ask for a 20-minute recap of a minor point. How do we navigate the gray area of partial understanding?
That is a highly sophisticated, a very common conversational need. You see, the social utility of language isn't always about perfect accuracy.
It's not.
No, sometimes it's just about maintaining social harmony and conversational flow. When someone is going on and on, explaining a massive, winding story or a highly complex, multi-tiered process, you need a phrase that signals, I understand the overarching theme, please continue.
So what's the phrase for that?
This is where you use phrases like, I catch your drift.
Catch your drift. You know, I've always found this one a bit funny. I mean, I know what it means, but it feels like such an antiquated metaphor. Why are we talking about drifting?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of the English language, we have to remember that Britain was a massive naval power for centuries.
Right, the Royal Navy.
Exactly. Because of this, English business and casual language is absolutely saturated with nautical metaphors, like learning the ropes, making waves, staying afloat, and yes, catching your drift.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
On a sailing ship, the drift is the general direction the water or the wind is taking the vessel, independent of where the ship is actively trying to steer.
Okay, so when you say I catch your drift, you're saying, I might not see the exact destination yet, but I recognize the current.
Precisely. You feel the general direction their thoughts are moving.
That completely changes how I view that phrase. You're recognizing the current of their thoughts. And it serves the exact social function we just talked about, which is keeping the momentum going. I suppose I get the picture works similarly.
Exactly. I get the picture relies on a visual metaphor instead of a nautical one.
Yeah.
It's perfect for when someone is describing a chaotic situation or a complex series of events.
Like they're painting a picture.
Yep. They are painting a scenario for you, adding detail after detail, and you're stepping back and seeing the whole canvas. So, if a team member is frantically explaining all the reasons a project is delayed, like the software crashed, the client is ignoring emails, the vendor shipped the wrong parts,
A total nightmare,
a
basically.
total nightmare. But you don't need to understand the technical specifications of the software crash. You could just say, okay, I get the picture. The project is delayed and you need an extension.
You're just summarizing the chaos into a single frame.
Exactly.
Or I guess we might say, I get the gist of what you're saying. The gist being the core essence, the absolute main point stripped of all the extra details.
Yes, the gist is a great one.
Or if it is a new physical skill or a software program, maybe I am getting the hang of it. Like, I don't know every single keyboard shortcut in this new editing software yet, but I'm getting the hang of it. The basic mechanics are starting to make sense.
Yes, and all of those expressions, catching the drift, getting the picture, understanding the gist, they serve a vital sociological function in the workplace.
Because they keep things moving.
Right. They keep the wheels turning. They prevent bottlenecking in communication by freeing you from the burden of claiming absolute 100% comprehension of every microscopic detail before a project can move forward.
Okay, so those are our casual, informal tools and our tools for partial understanding. But we can't always be that casual.
Definitely not.
Sometimes we need to strike a very delicate balance. We need neutral, empathetic alternatives. The phrases that work with clients, with newer acquaintances, or, and this is the big one, when someone is sharing a frustration.
Oh, yes.
Venting. If a colleague is venting about how stressed they are, and you just reply with a breezy, gotcha, you are going to sound completely dismissive, if not actively insulting.
This is a critical pivot. This is where we shift from the cognitive task of processing information to the emotional task of actually validating the human being in front of us.
So how do we do that?
Well, in these moments, you aren't just confirming data receipt, you are providing psychological safety. If someone explains a new, somewhat confusing logical process to you, and they seem unsure if they explained it well, a fantastic neutral phrase is, that makes sense.
That makes sense. It's so simple, but why is it so effective?
Because it places the validation on their reasoning, rather than just your comprehension. It tells the speaker that their logic is inherently sound.
Ah, I see.
You aren't just saying, I am smart enough to understand you. You are saying, your thoughts are organized well enough to be understood. It builds their confidence.
Right. And if they're expressing a specific viewpoint, maybe one you hadn't considered before, or even one you don't entirely agree with yet, you can say, I see what you mean, or I follow you, or even just, I hear you.
Let's focus on those specific phrases for a moment, because the linguistic delivery here is everything. This is where non-native speakers, and honestly a lot of native speakers, trip up.
How so?
When you are expressing empathy in spoken English, the rhythm, the prosody, and the intonation of your voice are arguably more important than the actual words themselves.
More important than the words.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
If you rush through an empathetic phrase, it sounds transactional and insincere. It sounds like you are just trying to get them to stop talking.
Wait, I want to push back on this a little. If I am consciously scripting the rhythm of my voice to sound empathetic, doesn't that make me sound a bit manipulative, like I'm playing a psychological trick on them?
That is a very common fear, but it really misunderstands what empathy is in a professional context. We often confuse emotional empathy, actually feeling the other person's pain, with cognitive empathy.
Cognitive empathy.
Right. Cognitive empathy is the conscious skill of recognizing and validating their state of mind. You don't have to feel their stress to validate it. Slowing down your speech isn't manipulation. It is a deliberate signal of respect. It shows you are actively allocating your cognitive resources to them.
Okay, that is a really vital distinction. Cognitive empathy as a skill. So how do we physically do it? How do we change the delivery?
I want you listening right now to pay very close attention to the cadence here. I'm going to slow these phrases down so you can hear the rhythm. Instead of a fast, clip delivery, you need to draw the vowel sounds out just a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
You create space in the conversation. Listen to the pacing of this. I see where you're coming from.
Oh, that's noticeably slower.
Let's try another one. Notice how the pitch of my voice drops slightly at the end to show sincerity and gravity. I know what you mean.
Yeah, the drop in pitch really sells it.
Taking that extra second to breathe, and stretching the words changes the entire emotional impact. It transforms a throwaway line into a deep acknowledgement.
Wow. Hearing you do that, it really does change the feeling completely. It goes from, yes, data processed, to I am actively listening, I am present, and I am validating your perspective.
Exactly.
And what if someone is really deeply frustrated? Let's say they're venting about a vendor who missed a massive deadline or a company policy that just completely undercut their team's budget. How do we show we understand their specific emotional state without necessarily agreeing that the company is evil?
You step into their shoes, hypothetically. You validate their reaction without necessarily condemning the third party.
Okay, give me an example.
You can say, I would feel the same way, or I don't blame you, or that's totally fair.
Oh, those are good.
These phrases are incredibly powerful sociological tools. They don't just say, I hear the words you're speaking. They say, I recognize your emotional state, and given the circumstances, it is a completely rational and justified response.
You're normalizing it for them.
Exactly. You are normalizing their frustration. This builds immense rapport because human beings have a fundamental psychological need to feel that their reactions are valid.
That is such a great way to put it. Normalizing their frustration. But then, on the complete opposite end of the conversational spectrum, we have the formal, professional alternative.
The heavy hitters.
Right. The phrases you use when you are talking to the CEO, dealing with a complex legal document, or sitting in a highly scrutinized regulatory meeting. I mean, you wouldn't tell a judge, I catch your drift.
No, you certainly would not. In these high-stakes scenarios, you want to project absolute clarity, precision, and professionalism. Vulnerability and empathy take a backseat to definitive understanding.
So I understand. Works here.
I understand is okay here, but it can sometimes feel a bit basic. You can elevate it. Often a single, crisp, multisyllabic word works best here. Understood or acknowledged.
Why do those single words feel so much heavier?
Because they strip away the I. When you say, I understand, the focus is slightly on you and your cognitive process.
Okay.
When you simply say acknowledged, the focus shifts entirely to the objective reality of the information. It sounds definitive. It leaves no room for doubt or subjective interpretation. It functions almost like a verbal signature on a contract.
Like an official, irrefutable receipt of information. That's clear. Or what if someone is making a firm counter-argument in a serious meeting? You are debating strategy, and they make a point that you can't logically refute.
And you say point taken.
Point taken. It means I hear your argument, I recognize its logical validity, and I am registering it into the record.
Exactly. And if you are dealing with truly complex, high-stakes information, perhaps a dense legal contract, a merger and acquisition strategy, or a major structural shift in the company, you might use the phrase, I comprehend the situation.
Comprehend is a much heavier, more robust word than understand.
Yes, because it implies depth.
Right.
To understand something might just mean you grasp the surface-level facts. To comprehend something implies a deep, thorough, 360-degree grasp of all the context, the underlying factors, and the potential long-term outcomes. This is a weighty word.
And what about the phrase, I'm aligned with your perspective? I hear this constantly in the corporate world, and honestly, it always sounds like something you'd hear in a boardroom with expensive leather chairs, spoken by someone wearing a very sharp suit.
It definitely paints a picture.
It just feels a bit like corporate jargon.
It is absolutely corporate jargon, and it is very formal, but we shouldn't dismiss it. It is highly effective in those specific environments because it borrows a concept from engineering and physics.
Align.
Yes. To be aligned means two separate objects are arranged in a straight line, moving in the exact same direction. In business, it shows not just cognitive understanding, but strategic solidarity. It means I understand your plan and my goals are now structurally moving parallel to yours.
So what does this all mean? We've successfully leveled up our ability to say, I understand, across every possible environment, from the break room to the boardroom, from casual chats to intense emotional venting.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But here is the terrifying reality. Understanding is only half the battle, because once you've confirmed you comprehend what someone is saying, the immediate next step is responding. Do you agree or disagree? And this, oh man, this is where language slams headfirst into culture. It's an absolute minefield.
It is a minefield of epic proportions. Disagreeing in a second language or even with a native speaker from a different corporate culture is a massive dual challenge.
Because you're managing two things at once.
Exactly. You're trying to manage linguistic precision, finding the exact right vocabulary and grammar, while simultaneously managing severe cultural risk. Because what is considered polite, professional, or productive varies wildly, almost violently, depending on where you are in the world.
Okay, let's start with the seemingly easy part before we get to the conflict. Let's talk about agreeing. When we agree in English, what are the go-to phrases and where do the cultural traps lie?
Linguistically, if you are in complete agreement, you can use idioms that emphasize shared vision, like we see eye to eye or we're on the same page. You can also use absolute statements like I couldn't agree more.
And if you only agree with part of it, because that happens all the time, like I like the goal, but I hate the budget.
Then you must use partial agreement phrases to protect the relationship before critiquing the idea. I agree with you up to a point, but, or, while I agree with the overall strategy, I think the timeline needs adjustment.
But even with simple agreement, there are huge cultural nuances, right? Like, I actually have a story about this.
Oh, let's hear it.
I was working with a European team, and an American consultant came in to pitch a new software integration. The American was nodding along to everything the European team said, shouting, absolutely, and I am 100% with you on that.
Oh boy, I see where this is going.
The European team thought they had full budget approval, but the next day, the American sent an email completely changing the plan. The European team felt lied to. They thought the American was utterly deceptive.
Yeah, this raises an important question about how different cultures view enthusiasm.
Yeah.
What you witness there is a classic clash over what linguists call upgraders.
Upgraders.
Yes, in the United States in particular, business culture heavily values visible, vocal enthusiasm as a sign of engagement. It is a social lubricant. So a U.S. professional might say, absolutely, or I am completely aligned, even if they only partially agree with the actual logistics of your idea.
Wait, really? Just to be supportive?
Yes, they are using an upgrader, an absolute word, to show enthusiastic support for the collaboration and the relationship, not necessarily literal, legal agreement with the facts being presented.
That is such a crucial distinction. Enthusiastic support for the relationship versus factual agreement with the plan. If you come from a culture where words are taken literally, an American's enthusiasm looks like a binding verbal contract.
Exactly.
But to the American, it's just high-fiving you for participating.
Right. Understanding this prevents you from thinking your American colleague is deceptive when they were really just trying to be a cheerleader for the meeting's energy.
That makes a lot of sense.
But let's flip the coin. If agreeing is complicated, disagreeing is where relationships are actually made or broken. Because English, particularly British and American English, depends heavily on hedging and softening language, much more than many other languages do.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the global confrontation spectrum, right? The way a German manager disagrees is going to be wildly different from how a Japanese manager disagrees.
Absolutely. We have to examine what we call confrontational cultures, places like Germany, France, Russia, Israel, or the Netherlands. In these societies, finding the objective truth or the absolute most efficient solution is the highest cultural priority.
The task is sacred.
The task is sacred. Therefore, open direct debate is seen as entirely healthy. It is positive for the group to stress test an idea. In these cultures, people are generally very comfortable saying, I completely disagree with that, or that plan will not work.
Because to them, it's not personal. It's just business. You are attacking the idea, not the human holding the idea.
Precisely. In Germany, they actually have a very specific, deeply ingrained concept for this called Sachlichkeit.
Sachlichkeit. What does that actually mean in practice?
It translates roughly to objectivity or functionalism, but it's deeper than that. It is the cultural practice, taught from a very young age, of completely separating the opinion from the person expressing the idea.
So it's purely logical.
It is a highly rational, almost Kantian approach to business. You can sit in a conference room and completely destroy a colleague's proposal. Point out every flaw, dismantle their budget, call the strategy short-sighted, and then 5 minutes later go have a perfectly warm, friendly lunch with that exact same person.
Wow.
Because the critique was about the task. The Sachlichkeit, the objectivity, dictates that my attack on your spreadsheet has absolutely zero bearing on my respect for you as a human being.
That sounds incredibly efficient, honestly. But I can imagine that if you take that direct, confrontational style, that Sachlichkeit, and you drop it into a harmony-focused culture,
Right.
it would be an absolute disaster.
A catastrophe. Because on the other side of the spectrum, you have cultures where confrontation is actively avoided, such as Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, China, and many others.
Right.
In these cultures, group harmony, social cohesion, and the collective atmosphere are the ultimate priorities. Open debate or direct, blunt disagreement is often considered negative, disruptive, arrogant, and deeply inappropriate.
This is the concept of saving face, right?
Yes, protecting face. It is about preserving someone's dignity, their prestige, and their public standing within the group hierarchy. In these cultures, causing someone to lose face by bluntly telling them they are wrong in front of others is a massive social violation.
So what do they do instead?
It is far more important to protect the group harmony than it is to state what you believe is factually correct in a blunt manner. The truth is often circled around gently rather than attacked directly.
So let's bring this back to the English language. English sits somewhere in the middle of this spectrum, but leans heavily towards softening.
Yes, it does.
When a non-native speaker from a very direct culture translates their natural, culturally appropriate thoughts directly into English, it can sound incredibly aggressive. Like if a German speaker translates "das stimmt nicht" literally into English, they get "that's not right."
Right, which sounds harsh.
Or a Russian speaker might directly translate a phrase meaning "this is a bad idea." In their home culture, this is just being helpful. But in an English-speaking workplace, it lands like a punch to the jaw.
Yes, and this causes endless friction. To a native English speaker, especially in corporate environments, hearing "that's not right" sounds inherently confrontational, dismissive, and perhaps even arrogant. It feels like an attack on the person's competence.